If you've been obsessing over nutrients, you are not alone. But what if I told you nutrients weren't what your plants were mostly made out of? Let's talk about what really drives explosive growth. Hey, but before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Grow Lab. If you want to connect with the best growers from all over the world, get tips and tricks on how to grow the dankest plants possible, and not have to worry about the censorship we get from YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, go check out realgrowlab.com. Get all kinds of great Grow Talk Q&A, plus see all the stuff YouTube won't let me show you in these videos. Sign up and join our growing community over at realgrowlab.com. Or download the app at the Apple or Android App Store. Now let's get back to today's video. Come on, High C. I don't know if we should be ready for this one or not. What are we doing? Don't I sell nutrients?
You do sell nutrients, but you've actually told me this quite a few times. Nutrients are important, but they're not the most important thing.
No, and the most important thing is, I know it's going to sound silly, but water and carbon, which is CO2 and water. Those are the most important things. Having your plant properly hydrated and having enough CO2 so it can build itself with.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into this. We were talking earlier and you were explaining it to me as a house analogy, building a house. Help me understand what you were talking about.
All right, this is 10th grade biology was where I tapped out, but we learned about glucose. You know what cellulose is? Have you ever heard? It's like the fiber of plants. It's like what's left over in straw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what plants are built out of. You know, that's that makes the structure of the plant. And it starts out, well, it starts out as CO2 and water. And plants use the power of the sun to combine them and combine that CO2 and water into glucose. And here, I wrote it down, man. The chemical formulation of glucose is C6H12O6.
We had to do a quick edit so you could look that up.
I needed my window. I'm not going to claim that I'm a chemist. What I can claim is, it's pretty simple, man. C is carbon, H is hydrogen, and O is oxygen. H2O. There's your hydrogen and your oxygen right there. Carbon, C, from the CO2 in the air. You don't have to be a chemist to understand that with some help, we can build plant material out of that, right?
Yeah, so taking it back to the house analogy.
Yeah.
The carbon and the water are kind of like the lumber, what the house is actually built out of.
Yes. And now we need help making all that happen. We need energy making all that happen. We need tools, right? We need our hammer. We need our nails. Mm-hmm. That's your N, P, and K. Those are what your nutrients are doing. Your nutrients are helping facilitate the assembly of that glucose. You know, building that plant material. So if you don't have those nutrients, then it's not going to happen. But when you look at a plant, don't think it's made out of your N, P, and K. Don't think it's made out of your fancy bloom booster. It is made out of, basically, it's built from glucose. Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, I need a hammer, but maybe I don't need to go out and buy the most expensive hammer or the best professional hammer.
You need to figure out a way to keep the plant building itself. That's what you need. And you can do it with a fancy hammer. You can get yourself the fancy nail gun if you want. But if you don't have any lumber, if there's no 2x4s and plywood, what are you going to build?
Okay, earlier you were talking about self-limiting factors, I think is what you said.
Is that you reflecting in the car? You're thinking, what is my self-limiting factor? Yield limiting factor is what it is. Yeah, and it's pretty simple. What's limiting your yields? Is it the nitrogen? Is there not enough nitrogen to turn the plant green, to get the chloroplast to work so you can get light? Is it light? Is there not enough light energy? Is it phosphorus or potassium? All those, they move nutrients around. They're in charge of opening and closing the stomata. All that is energy that the plants need. And then is it carbon? The major building block of the plant, of cellulose, is carbon. So yeah, that's kind of where I start, or at least that's the one that I'm very interested in. It's easy to get my hydrogen and my oxygen from water. You only need a little bit amount of the hammer and nails compared to the, big pallets of plywood outside. So I got to make sure I've got enough nitrogen to, make sure the plant's green so it can absorb light and the chlorophyll works correctly. I got to make sure it's got enough phosphorus and potassium. So all that's, all the plant mechanisms are working. Stomatas are opening and closing, nutrients are able to be moved all around. That's the nutrients job. But the plant's built out of carbon.
So back to the house analogy, I'm thinking if I've got money to invest, I'm going to probably want to get a good hammer, but I'm really going to make sure I get the right lumber, the right building material.
If I'm looking to build a big house, I want to make sure I got the right tools. Absolutely. I'll be super clear about this. You can't build a good house without hammer and nails and the right screws and the right hardware, all that stuff. I'm not diminishing it. There's macronutrients, there's secondary nutrients, there's micronutrients. You have just the tiniest, you need the tiniest bit of molybdenum. Okay, that's like having, I don't know, a teeny tiny screw or something like that. If you don't have it, though, everything doesn't work. So, you certainly need those nutrients, but we try to help growers. I really do. It makes me feel great when growers say, hey, man, I was really able to skip through a lot of the BS by listening to your stuff. So if you're going to get a system, if you're going to build a grow, get a really good light, make sure that your climate is controlled really well. And what that means a lot of times is just circulating the air and bringing fresh CO2 enriched air in. Don't forget the air outside is about 400 ppm. I'll bet you it's 600 or 700 ppm in this room right now, the amount that I'm running my mouth. But no, you'd be surprised just hanging out in the room or getting a little CO2 burner or, actually a tank is better, a tank or one of those little exhale bags. But just don't sleep on the CO2. Before you go and spend $300 or $400 or $500 on a 16-bottle nutrient kit or, that $100 bottle that you're super excited about, just think, how can I remember that carbon is the building block, and how can I get more carbon? If I want to build this plant faster and stronger, how can I get more carbon in it? How can I build more glucose in there?
I think the main takeaway is if I'm going to invest, the thing I'm going to get the most leverage out of is investing in good CO2, good light, and making sure my plant is getting the right amount of water.
Yup. And I always say environment. I sound like a broken record. CO2, meaning if you're circulating the air and you're getting fresh CO2, and that counts as environment. Light, being able to drive photosynthesis, that counts as environment. And just keeping the plant comfortable with temperature and humidity so it's actually able to uptake, the stomata stay open. That's the big deal. Whether you give it super fancy nutrients, 12 bottle liquid nutrients or simple grow dots or whatever. I've seen people grow good stuff with Miracle Grow. It's got NP and K in it. I've seen it happen, man. I wish I didn't. Hey, that is just me. I think that water, light, and CO2 are more important than a fancy bottle of nutrients any day. But what about you? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. And if you dug this video, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, talk about this one with another grower and check out the other couple videos YouTube's recommending because I think you'll dig them.